American industry on parade at the biggest show in history. A $150 million show that played for 2 summers to an audience of millions of people from all parts of the country. To people who learned many things they never knew before about steel and railroads, automobiles and aviation, and about the importance of the one great industry on which all these others must depend for continued operation, petroleum. Here were gathered exhibits representative of the entire industry, no one company being featured in any way. Exhibits so designed and presented with such dramatic and novel effect that the visitor might trace the development of this great industry from the discovery of the first oil well to the varied and complex uses of oil today, and how it affects all of us in our daily lives. Far from being a mere shelter for a display, the petroleum building in itself was carefully designed to focus attention upon the industry. The great triangular structure resting upon 4 huge petroleum tanks was a streamlined modernization of a cooling tower. The walls rose 80 feet above the ground, each side measuring 200 feet, and the concave wall design included effective night lighting so as to keep the brilliant blue color equally attractive both night and day. The observation roof afforded a superior vantage point from which to view the fairgrounds. A modern, well-equipped restaurant, deep, comfortable lounges and chairs, and tables conveniently placed provided rest and relaxation for visitors. While on all 3 sides, the movement, color, and life of the fair's vast panorama lay before the visitor's eyes, and one could linger and view the dazzling sights at leisure. The strange modernistic buildings, forward in design and bold in color, housing the wonders of industry, science, art, education, commerce, and communications. The courts, fountains, and colorful displays of flowers and shrubs. The flags, the music, the endless stream of people, a sight to challenge the mind and stimulate the imagination. A modern miracle come to life on what was once a barren flatland. And towering above it all, the highest oil derrick in the world, rearing its giant framework against the sky, attention compelling in its structure, an exact duplicate of the thousands of oil derricks to be found in oil fields all over the world, from mountains to coastal plains, wherever man seeks to find nature's petroleum deposits. This derrick and well beneath it were constructed in order that every detail of modern oil drilling methods might be demonstrated to the public at the fair. 200 feet in height, it weighed nearly 40 tons. Its base was 34 feet square and could support a load of 1 million pounds. The well beneath it, 440 feet deep, was bottomed in solid granite, cased off with a steel pipe and cemented from top to bottom. While from the crown, Old Glory kept proud watch. A sign directed visitors to the derrick exhibit and the demonstration shows, which were put on many times a day, giving thousands who had never seen an oil well some idea of the great labor and cost involved in the production of oil, and depicting the work of the men who bring up petroleum from the depths of the earth. As visitors crowded around the derrick, Wildcat Ross, the announcer for station PETE, the Petroleum Broadcasting System, delivered a lecture on the rotary method of drilling for oil. The equipment was described in every detail of the operation. The derrick man, his working position on this derrick was 110 feet above the derrick floor. Hooking on his safety belt, he rides the drill pipe up into the derrick where the pipe is stacked, while the announcer described his job up there in latching or unlatching the elevators on the pipe and how he racks it in the derrick. Each member of the drilling crew, as well as the announcer, was recruited from major oil fields in Texas or Oklahoma. Experienced oil men who, by their teamwork, their expert handling of this equipment, gave the audience a realistic view of actual operations. Here are the giant rotary tongs and the huge winches suspended on cables with counterbalance weights beneath the derrick floor. And here the intent faces of the crowds of people who gathered round the derrick at every show. People who had never seen an oil well drilled before and probably never would again. Their deep and absorbed interest is indicative of the fact that this was a never-to-be-forgotten experience, which gave thousands of people a new concept of the actual production of oil. They saw the diesel-electric unit of 700 horsepower, 500,000 watts of electricity capable of drilling oil wells to depths exceeding 15,000 feet, almost 3 miles down. the man at the controls who is the head driller, boss of the job at all times, and the success or failure of the oil well dependent on his experience and judgment. Yes, the crowds followed every step of the procedure. People from all walks of life drawn here from all over the land. People learning about petroleum. All the day-by-day procedure in drilling for oil as employed by the oil companies in the great oil fields was reenacted. There were descriptions of the pipe being used and the safety methods employed in handling this heavy equipment. As the derrick man rode down with the last stand of drill pipe, the narrator described the various rock formations through which the drill must penetrate, and the climatic and working conditions found in oil fields from Pennsylvania to California. Here the spectators learned something of the operation of the drill stem, the swivel unit, and the speed of drilling. The functions of the different parts of equipment shown on the drill floor were described, as well as the process of pumping mud through the rotary hose, the number of pounds of mud pumped per minute, the work of the gun perforator, and how it operates. As the drill was lowered in the derrick, the narrator described the drill collar and the construction of the drilling bit itself, the flexibility of the pipe, and the speed of drilling, and how wells could be sunk at angles under lakes, rivers, oceans, as well as tall buildings. The crowds followed every detail as the drill went into action. They heard a description of the electric photographic outfit and its ability to picture the bottom of the drill hole to permit directional drilling. They heard of the difficulties involved in fishing for lost drill pipe, drilling bits and other equipment, and how the drilling bits are replaced and again lowered to the bottom of the hole. Slowly the crowds passed by each exhibit, saw the giant pump capable of lifting oil from a depth of 8,000 feet. Competent geologists were on duty to answer all questions on geology and formations, and to exhibit the complete geological display. Every hour during the day, the colorful and intriguing motion picture, Oil Can and Does, was shown on a great screen in one angle of the Hall of Industry. Plot and action were carried out by a puppet character called Petroleum, and a large number of supplementary puppets called Petroleum Cousins. Every show played to large audiences, creating goodwill for the petroleum industry and its products by this interesting and amusing method of illustrating the use of petroleum in our normal everyday life, and what would happen to the modern world if the supply of petroleum were to come to an end. In fact, there was an interesting and colorful exhibit of some kind always in progress in the Petroleum building. Exhibits linking petroleum to the world of today and tomorrow. In this little show about the use of petroleum on the farm and in the home, hundreds of thousands of visitors to the Petroleum building learned of countless uses of petroleum quite unfamiliar to them. The housewife represented the average American who either does not know or does not realize the many ways in which petroleum is used in the home and on the farm. From the dialogue between the oil salesman and the housewife, visitors to this exhibit learned that petroleum is used throughout the construction of the house, from the asphalt in the cellar to the shingles on the roof, that modern homes of today are waterproofed and weatherproofed through the use of petroleum products. They learned that petroleum is in building paper, in varnish, in paint, that it preserves wood and inhibits rust. The salesman explained to the housewife that oil goes into insecticides and fertilizers, that oil is needed in cars, trucks, and tractors to keep them operating smoothly and efficiently. Visitors learned that oil produces kerosene and diesel fuel used in farm equipment, and that it goes into the making of rubber tires and is also used in refrigeration. That even the cosmetics the lady wears contain oil, her lipstick and rouge, her creams and lotions, her nail polish and perfume. At last, the salesman convinces the housewife that petroleum meets many real needs in her home. The second show presented to the public demonstrated the importance of petroleum in transportation. The bride and groom, starting on a modern honeymoon in an airplane powered by high-octane gasoline, recounted a history of travel from the time of old Dobbin until the present day. As the couple pointed to the different exhibits which were lighted in turn, they told of the chronological development of various methods of transportation which went hand in hand with refining developments during the last 80 years, drawing comparisons between transportation methods at different time stages. Here the public learned of the drilling of the first oil well 80 years ago and the first uses of oil in transportation. and the great strides in the development of automobile and aviation engines which have been made possible by petroleum research and improved refining methods. As the skit concluded, the couple emphasized the improvement in oil affected by research and mentioned the benefits of knockless engine operation, increased acceleration, and better lubrication which the motoring public enjoys today. The third petroleum show was based on a discussion of the gas dollar and where it goes. The attendant explained to his customer how every penny of the dollar she pays for gasoline is spent. Here the public learned of the many and varied taxes which the oil industry pays, taxes totaling 25 cents of every gas dollar. Of the huge payrolls in the oil industry, representing 28 cents of every gas dollar, that 10 cents of every gas dollar goes for service stations for the benefit of the motoring public, that the costs of pipelines, wells, and refineries absorb 34.5 cents of each dollar, that management claims only half a penny of the gas dollar, and that the remaining 2 cents represents profits, profits which are returned to the people who have invested their savings in the oil industry. One of the most unusual and convincing displays was that of petroleum in industry. The mechanic and his son, conversing in the machine shop, discussed and emphasized the many uses of oil in keeping the machinery of industry well oiled and running smoothly. Grinders, shapers, lathes, drill press, and an airplane motor were prominently displayed, and visitors learned about the many uses of oil beside that of lubrication of machinery. They learned about oil and water mixtures used for cooling, mixtures achieved by chemical research which make it possible to cool and lubricate work simultaneously. They learned of the uses of oil in hydraulic pressure and the accuracy necessary in internal grinders used for airplane engines, which must be accurate to within a 25,000th of an inch. They learned that oil pumped under pressure assures smooth action and accuracy in this delicate operation. They learned of the special importance of lubricants for the superchargers, which spin in airplane motors 30,000 times per minute. The work of the world powered and cushioned by oil. All the little-known facts about oils for industrial lubrication were presented in this exhibit. The only team of oxen at the New York World's Fair, drawing an old-fashioned wagon, illustrated transportation in bygone days. As the wagon makes its slow, laborious way along the road, a vivid contrast could be drawn between it and the transportation methods of today. We see the huge creaking wheels lubricated with the first crude forms of grease, and could compare these with our modern lubricating equipment. Water wheels and windmills portrayed primitive methods of developing power prior to the 19th century. Accustomed as we are to modern high-speed machines, it is difficult to imagine that this huge water wheel was once an important source of power. On this beautiful relief map, the public saw natural gas lines, crude oil lines, pumping stations, refineries, and derricks light up as a commentator traced the history of oil in our country from the time of Colonel Drake at Titusville, Pennsylvania in 1859 to the present time. It was pointed out that each of the 900 little green derricks on the map represented an entire oil field, not just one well, and that each field thus designated has hundreds of wells. Depth of wells and the total amount of crude oil produced in the United States and other information of interest was supplied by a scroll at the rear of the map, which was synchronized with the operation of the lights on the map. The public was able to study the network of 280,000 miles of underground pipelines, which transport the crude oil safely from the fields to the refineries, and from the refineries to different points of distribution and consumption. They learned of the movement of oil not only by pipeline, but by tank cars, ocean tankers, and barges, and that 1/3 of all the freight tonnage handled in the United States today is composed of or related to petroleum products. As the map darkened and the lights representing derricks, oil fields, pipelines, and refineries were shown in vivid colors, the visitors were able to get a comprehensive idea of the enormous extent of petroleum production, transportation, and distribution. A $14 billion industry which has helped make the American standard of living the highest in the world. Another phase of the vast petroleum industry was illustrated to the public by the model miniature oil refinery, where a lecturer described 4 different ways of refining crude oil. Here in front of the chart showing refining methods of technical research, the public learned of the ceaseless research which has resulted in countless new petroleum products for the world of today and tomorrow. Here the visitor could trace the course of the crude oil from the time it entered the refinery until it emerged as many different byproducts. They saw a model miniature refinery, accurately worked out to scale, typical of modern refineries in use today, capable of refining any type of crude oil and producing all of the products which we now get from petroleum. The narrator described the storage of crude oil in the huge tanks bordering the refinery, traced the oil through the crude pipe stills to the bubble towers or fractionizing units, then followed the cuts of gas oil through the complete refining processes to the finished products. The wall charts also demonstrated clearly to fair visitors a few of the many intricate and scientific processes by which petroleum is refined. The cracking process illustrated the method by which refiners obtained a higher gasoline content from their crude base stock, as high as 60% content from the proper stock. Visitors learned about the work of the absorption units, whose trays filled with absorption oil absorbs the heavy structures of gas present. Each step in the process of polymerization, dewaxing and purifying was graphically and simply illustrated and explained in a manner comprehensive to all. And as night falls and the sky bursts into light and color, we see the petroleum buildings set like a great blue jewel in the night, reflected in the waters of the lake surrounding the perisphere. While from the roof, there is spread before us the spectacular display of water, light, flame, and color, the thrilling pageant of the greatest spectacle of our time.